Today, I'm going to explain to you why the VJ thing is not an option, it's a necessity, and why the market is inevitably driving us in this direction. In 1973, the golden age of television, there were three networks: NBC, ABC, and CBS. There was PBS, and there were a few local stations. Altogether, these three networks, plus the local stations, had a demand for 64,000 hours of programming every year. That's not a lot of television. 64,000 hours could pretty much be handled by the studios, the networks, and a couple of independent producers who lived down in Greenwich Village and made an hour or two a year for PBS. Those three networks divided an audience of 100 million households. Right? That was the viewership in America. So pretty much any network could be guaranteed 30 million households in prime time in the evening. That meant that you could pretty much put on Gilligan's Island, My Mother the Car, Beverly Hillbillies, almost any piece of crap, and still make a fortune, because advertisers would pay the maximum dollar to get into 30 million households every night. Now a piece of technology comes along, and that's cable. And in 1973, we go from 3 networks to 500 channels by 2003. Right. Today in cable, you've probably got 500, 600, maybe even 1,000 channels at home. We accept it as second nature. Those 500 channels now represent a total demand of 4.5 million hours of programming every year. That's a lot of television. 4.5 million hours every year. Your entire life is only 760,000 hours long. Where does the 4.5 million hours come from? Because at the same time, as we've gone from 3 networks, 500 channels, the population of the country hasn't changed. So effectively, we've gone from 30 million viewers per channel on average down to really tiny numbers. Some cable stations get 20, 30, maybe 100,000 viewers in an average hour. Well, commercial buyers will pay millions of dollars to be in 30 million households, but they won't really pay a lot for a commercial spot on a cable channel that's getting 500,000, 300,000, 20,000 viewers. So what's happened here is the demand for content has gone up astronomically. Tons of demand for video. But the amount of money that each channel can produce in a given hour has collapsed. And that's the money that pays for content. Now that's not the end of it, because we're only in 2003. Now the web has gone to video. So the demand for video has gone from 500 channels with the internet to effectively infinity. Every web channel and every website, if it doesn't have video already, it's going to need it. And just look around. NewYorkTimes.com, WashingtonPost.com, newspapers, magazines, radio stations, they're all moving to video. On top of that, if you want to sell your car, if you want to sell your house, even if you have a dating site, it's going to require video. So demand for video now has gone through the ceiling. At the same time, the effective number of channels has exploded. So the viewership per channel between cable, broadcast, and the web, the viewership per channel has collapsed down to almost nothing. We find ourselves in a very interesting situation. The demand for content, video content, is exploding. Everyone wants video. But the price point that anybody can pay for that video is collapsing. This demand, this enormous demand that's been created now, this gap, cannot be filled by Hollywood studios. It can't be filled by networks. Can't even be filled by boutique studios because it's too expensive. If you have to make a video to sell a car, you can't have a producer, a director, a DA, a sound man, all the conventional employees. If you have a laptop and you have a small camera and you have the skill set to produce high-quality video, you can find a market, because all of these people are going to need what you know how to make. And I am going to teach you how to do this. It's a career that didn't even exist 5 years ago, but it's going to be the biggest growth career of the next 10 years. Watch me.